Did You Do It is my diploma film, my thesis film, as a part of the creative documentary course I was doing at SACAC in New Delhi. Um, I chose this idea because I was trying to look at the idea of what does home mean for me. I am someone whose father got transferred every 4 5 years as a child. So home has always been changing for me every 4 5 years. And few years ago, I found myself in this place in Ghaziabad, which was unlike any other place I had lived in. And the landscape of the place really got to me. It was so varied and so confusing, and I never used to feel like I belong here. It used to feel like the middle of nowhere. There was farmlands, there was a river which was full of foam, and suddenly in the middle of nowhere there'll be like high rises, which is where I live now. So all of that was also having some kind of effect on me. I feel like there was a lot of discord in the whole surroundings in the environment. So that really got to me. I would keep seeing like piles of garbage right in front of my house, people passing by, like we all do. I've also never, before the film, I never stopped and actually, looked at a pile of garbage and wondered about it. But yeah, like right opposite my house is this carbon factory you see in the film, and it's always spewing smoke. Like if you take a tissue paper and rub it on the surface in the balcony, it will be covered in soot. So stuff like that. Little things started happening like this, and then I realized the interconnection that is there between the food that I'm eating, the water that I'm drinking, the garbage, land, farming, the air that I'm breathing. All of this started to somehow, in some or the other way, also manifest in my own body. So it was like there is a crisis going on outside, and it's also manifesting in some or the other way inside my own body. And that made me think about, what part do I as an individual play in the larger scheme of things. So then came the idea of connecting my microcosm to the macrocosm, which is like so I was seeing that say, the food that we use, the vegetables that are being cut at home are being thrown in the garbage. The garbage is very inhumanly thrown down the chute. I had no idea before that there's actually people underground who are working to clean that garbage out. So interconnections like that started happening, and it made me wonder that it's like a chain. Like if I throw something in the garbage, where does it end up? If I eat something, where does it end up? um, where does my water come from? Where does it end up after I use it? Just things like that started happening. So then the audio visual treatment also became quite interlinked with that, in the sense of the microcosm and the macrocosm. And it became something as simple as looking at something closely through close ups or mid close ups, and then expanding it to the larger world, wider shots. Similar treatment was followed for the sound. We tried to get as much as the close-up sounds versus like the larger sounds as possible. um, I would say the edit proved to be difficult because like in my head the whole idea was very clear, but to translate it into like cinema was difficult, because got stuck in the linearity of things. Like, okay, I'm getting water in my tap, so I will follow it down to the sewage. From the sewage, I'll go to the water treatment plant. From there, I'll go to the river. So it became very linear, and then like when I was editing it, it became very boring also. And then at a very later stage of the edit, my professor Samira Jain, she and I decided that, okay, let's break down the structure and see if there is an actual internal logic in the film that is bringing the thing together, or is it something we're just imposing on the film? And thankfully there was an internal logic in the film, so we were able to then bring it to the structure that it is in now, um, where I hope it's not as linear, and also remains like a revelation to an extent. So, of course, there's a parallel between ourselves and the city, because the film made me realize that I am very much a part of, in whatever small way, in whatever small everyday way, whatever I consume ends up in, say, the Ghazipur landfill close by. It's a huge landfill, and there's been enough and more news about it. It also recently collapsed a few years ago and killed a few people. So, like that really, that I mean, the realization that in my own small everyday ways, I contribute to the destruction outside, in whatever way, like whether it's it's so much about also access. So many of these natural resources are just so easily accessible to me, like clean drinking water versus the farmer you see in the film who's having to struggle at the hand pump and try and get water. They also don't have access to clean water to grow the vegetables, which then people like me end up consuming. So it's I guess a mix of all of that. Another thing was that when I was researching for the film, I came across this article in this newspaper called Faridabad Mazdoor Samachar. So they had done a wonderful article on waste, and there was a line in that article that really struck me, and that line was, our attitudes towards food and waste are similar, and it shows when you look at um, lines in a wedding ceremony or something like that, food lines in a wedding ceremony. There's already so much on everyone's plate, and there's as much in the garbage. So there was that line, and then there was this line that food is shit and shit is food. So that's what made me realize that everything does eventually go inside my body. And so, the state of discord in the city also becomes a state of discord within myself. Even, the sense of belongingness, like there is no sense of belongingness in this landscape for me. The film definitely made me more comfortable, but there's just something about it that does not feel like home. Access didn't prove to be so difficult, thankfully. What proved to be difficult was filming with the people who pick the garbage. So because everything happens on a contract basis inside gated communities like this one, every few weeks they would keep changing the people who are picking the garbage. And so every time I would become familiar, and they would become familiar and comfortable with me, by the time I would go to shoot again, it would be someone else. So there was like this constant need to make them comfortable around the camera. They didn't understand why I am shooting garbage and what use this would have, and I had to keep explaining that over and over again to every new people I met, like every new group of people I met. So that was an issue. Otherwise, access wise, it thankfully went pretty smoothly for me. mm, yeah, I would say that and obviously the traveling between these different places to shoot was a little bit of a logistical challenge, but everything's close by, so it was mostly fine. So before I made the film, the idea of research was very academic for me, that I have to read stuff and I have to write stuff. But because of this film, that changed quite a bit. I was quite inspired by Komal Kothari's work in Rajasthan. He's an ethnomusicologist, and his work is just fascinating because to understand the folk music of a place, he begins with like understanding something like what type of grass grows in the farm, what type of animals graze at what time, what songs are sung during that time, what kind of diseases happen during that time. Is there any interlinkages between that? So for me, that has informed the process of the film to quite a large extent. Also, like Agnes Varda's Gleaners has informed the uh, research process quite a lot, because I just love how they went about reading and meeting newer people and just noticing the interlinkages between things. I really like that way of working. So that was like, I watched films, I read Komal Kothari's work, I was reading academic papers from students in Ambedkar University in Delhi. I spoke to someone who was doing his urban ecology masters there. uh, I spoke to farmers here. I spoke to shop owners here because there's also this very peculiar kind of situation with roadside shops here, which is just like full of furniture shops. And the farmers were like, the soil is full of termite, and but then there is wooden furniture shops. So just trying to figure that out. How does that work out? Um, I spoke to a few police people, obviously, for permissions and everything. Farmers here, went to the market, listened to a few songs. So it was quite extensive in that sense. Like it was across different mediums, I guess. So the film is called Did You Do It? Because you keep hearing the red wattle lapwing birds call throughout it, and slowly the volume of that call increases. Uh, and the red wattle lapwing is also known as the Did You Do It bird. So when I was filming, and even now, just a couple of days ago, at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the night, I was hearing the lapwing calling. So that's what inspired the name of the film.